down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Savvy Radio Show. I'm excited that you are here, and I'm even more excited that Pat Pointon is here. You know, it's so funny. I just met with a real estate investor on my way to the studio, and I'm like, dude, I'm so excited I get to hang out with Pat Pointon this morning. He's like, who's that? And I was like, and this is a guy, he's going to hear this, and you're going to feel a little convicted, because you tell me you listen to all my podcasts, and how do you not listen to my podcast and not know Pat Pointon? I mean, this guy, if you look at all my people that have interviewed, Pat is the guy, and Thomas Morgan are like neck and neck of the guys that I interview quite often, as much as possible. But no disrespect, if you don't know Pat Pointon, you should know this guy. If you live in Oklahoma City, for sure, I had a burp on that one, because he is a legend in our world. This guy has raised over $6 million, does land development, does owner finance. I think he's probably him and Dutch Revenboer are probably, excuse me, I'm burping like a mother, is the only guys I know that love creative financing, love negotiating, and love this game of real estate investing. And so today's subject, yes, today we're going to talk about negotiations. And so I was talking to one of my old mentors about Pat. I was like, yeah, Pat's really wanting to get on the radio and give back. He's in that stage of his life where he wants to empower people and just return, right? Is that what it is, Pat?
Well, to some degree, sure.
Is giving back to people that have helped you throughout the years. And my buddy suggested, you know, Pat is a master negotiator. And I'm like, interesting. And he's like, you should have Pat tell about his stories of how he bought the motorhome. That's one, you know, what's your normal techniques. And so let's start there. What's the first thing that you do when you negotiate? I mean, and like, what's your rules of thumbs? The rules of thumbs. I guess we got two of them, but
yeah, there'd only be two, wouldn't there? If they were rules of thumbs. In our case, it'd be four. Yours and mine. Yeah.
All right, thumbs up.
Okay.
So, like, you know, I usually go in with a strategic plan when I'm negotiating, even if I'm going to go buy a new car, a house. Negotiating with my wife that I need to go out of town for business.
Whatever. Yeah.
I went and bought a shirt the other day. My wife saw it. I had to negotiate. You know, hey, I got something. Let me give you, you know, negotiation is everything.
Absolutely. Well, you know, this is a little bit risque, but my dad always used to say the difference between rape and seduction is salesmanship.
I would agree.
And that's kind of what you think about negotiation.
Or aggressiveness, I guess, if you rape somebody.
You know, I mean, it's negotiation in anything we do makes the world easier place to live. Now, let's talk about my motorhome. I wanted this motorhome. And my wife said her standard thing, which is no. That's the worst thing my wife says first off whenever I bring anything up is no.
Oh, man.
And then she lets me discuss how come no is not the correct response. So I thought about it for about a month or two, and it came to me, and I decided, well, if I could figure out how to own a motorhome, and it didn't cost you a thing, not a thing, would you have any other objections to me having a motorhome?
So it's a cost basis, cost analysis for her.
That's the first one for her always.
So you have to, just like me, you have to go through the chain of command. You went through your wife to get the approval. Right.
So I'm saying if in fact it doesn't cost anything to our company or to you, would you have any problems with me owning it other than that? Well, she said, no, I wouldn't. I just don't want to spend $30,000 or $50,000 or whatever it is. I just want to do that. I said, okay. So I came back and I said, okay, here's my plan. It took me a week or two to work this plan out. And I said, instead of mentoring people the way we're doing it now, we're going to have a field mentoring class. We're going to have a weekend boot camp, and we're going to go out in the motorhome and physically walk through properties and look at these properties and determine which ones are buys and which ones aren't, and show people what mold looks like and foundation cracks look like and when does it need replaced and whatever in these properties. And we're going to discuss it between the properties in the motorhome. It's going to be the classroom.
So you're still trying to negotiate with your wife on this.
I'm telling my wife, this is the plan for her.
But in the back of your mind, you think, I can write this off on your taxes.
Absolutely. Well, I already had this figured out for myself. Now I got to explain it to her. In the meantime, because I make it a business, I can depreciate it. Number two, I can also use it when I'm not holding boot camps as a field office or go to the lake in it or whatever I want to do with it. And when I charge for a boot camp, if that money is sufficient to pay for the motorhome, then in fact the motorhome has not cost her anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we still own the motorhome today.
All right.
It's been paid for several years.
Okay. Well, not everybody can host boot camps.
No, but that was what I meant. When I negotiated with her, I figured out what her issue was, which was money.
Okay.
And then I figured out a way to address this issue in such a manner that if I could convince her this would work, then there wasn't anything else to object to.
All right. So tip number one is find out what their motivation is.
That's what I'm getting at.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Okay. Well, hey, this is a good way to coach somebody.
Actually, the whole point here was to determine what it was she was going to object to. Okay. And I thought, because I knew her extremely well, what her objection would be.
So in general, when you're negotiating for a deal or even for private money, you want to know if there's objections and you want to have them.
Want to have some idea what they would be and have some kind of a response planned in advance.
Okay. Excellent.
Now, like, for instance, if I go to talk to somebody about buying their house, then the first thing I do while I'm looking at their house is I ask them leading questions. How long have you owned it?
Mm-hmm.
Who did you buy it from? Now, I don't really care, except I'm trying to figure out what is their reason for selling it.
Okay.
And once I know what their reason is for selling it, then I can think about how to negotiate with them on the price.
All right, so they're motivational. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of real estate investors or the rookies, you kind of heard that before. Let's just get back into the RV.
Yeah.
How'd you negotiate that at the dealership?
Well, I didn't buy one from a dealership. I rarely buy from a dealership.
Okay, where'd you get this one?
I started searching ads in the newspaper and on the internet, looking for sale by owners. I can come much nearer negotiating with an owner than I can with a dealer.
Okay.
Now, when I go to see a dealer, he's got as much negotiating skill or more than I have.
Okay, so you want the advantage.
I want the advantage, and that's usually by dealing with an individual rather than with a company.
Okay, so let's apply that to real estate. That would be a for sale by owner versus a realtor, because you're dealing with two realtors. You're dealing with the realtor that represents you, that's not necessarily, they're motivated, but then the guy that has the listing or gal, they have a whole different dynamic, personality.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I've done a lot of deals with realtors, and I'll probably continue to, but here's what I don't like about the realtor deal. I probably can present my case to buy your house better than anybody because it's my deal. But I've got to give it to my realtor, who gives it to their realtor, who goes to talk to them.
Which confuses
And maybe they can present it really good, and maybe they don't present it worth a flip.
Or maybe their dog died that day, and they're not on point, and my life is in the balance.
Exactly.
I've actually been trying to craft a podcast on how to deal with realtors in general. Maybe we should talk about that another time.
That's a whole
subject. So let's get back to the guy.
Anyway, back to the motorhome. So I look at many motorhomes, okay?
Okay.
So, I never can buy one. I go back to the 100 house rule that I use for buying houses, and I didn't look at 100 motorhomes, but I probably looked at 30.
And if you haven't heard that podcast before, which is a rule of thumb that I teach people, you must look at 100 deals, even physically or on paper, but you've got to go through 100 transactions, start to finish. What is it going to cost? What's my ROI? What's my return? My funding? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
100
absolutely.
deals. So
you need to practice.
So in this case, how many
I probably
RVs
did 30 or 35 motorhomes.
that you analyzed?
Yeah, that I analyzed. I didn't go see every one of them. Some of them I looked at on the internet and said it's too small, it's not configured right, or whatever, it's too high, whatever. And I got down and I looked at probably 7 or 8 that were seriously worth a physical look and a drive and whatever. And I wanted a certain interior configuration because since I'm going to use this as a molding classroom, I needed more seating capacity than some of them had. You know, if I had a bunch of bunk beds or something in it, it didn't work for me. I needed more couches and tables and that sort of things because I'm going to use it as a classroom and as an office on jobs.
Man, we need to get this thing back out rolling, me and you.
Yeah, I got it.
Let's do it.
I've done it. I've done them. What you thought bus tours are? I was doing bus tours when you weren't even in real estate, man.
I know this is kind of exciting. I could just see us all, having some drinks on this thing. You're driving around,
right? We've done that, and I've also taken out a group of people like Stephen Earp.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he was in my bus.
Right. That's how he told me about that deal. All right, keep focused.
Anyway, so I negotiate down to 2 or 3 that I really am interested in.
Okay, hold on. Let's get some feedback here. So, did you ever go to a RV show, and walk through a show and saw and compare like a brand new 2000 blank?
No, but I went to 2 or 3 of the dealers in town, the bigger ones, and went through their lots.
Okay, and just kind of had a general idea.
Right. There wasn't a show happening when I was trying to.
Okay, that's fine. So then you had 7 in your radar.
Yeah.
That you actually physically went and looked at
and drove and compared.
Oh, you even drove them.
Oh yeah, it's like a car. When I look at a car, you don't drive it.
Okay, so there's a tip right there that I don't do is I get lazy. And what motivated you? Like I try to maybe 1, 2, or 3. In my world, I look at 3 things. That's just like bids I do. But I like that you went to 7. Is that a normal? That's pretty labor intensive.
Well, what I do is fairly labor intensive when I buy. That's the thing I do best in the world, I believe, is buy.
That's where you make the most money.
And so I normally look at 10 of anything, and 2 or 3 of them I can toss before I actually drive them or whatever. I mean, I walked around them. It didn't look as good as it looked on the internet, we'll say, and I'm done.
Right.
But I started off with roughly 10.
Okay.
2 or 3 of them I didn't like something about the way they drove or the seating arrangement or something.
The bunk beds.
And I got down to about 5 that I was fairly interested in. And then a couple of those people were pretty much, this is the price, take it or leave it.
Jerky.
They didn't need to sell it very bad, And then there were 2 or 3 that were pretty interested. And I got down to 2 that were really, really good. And I'm not even sure, to tell you the truth, that I bought the right one between the 2. They were pretty much a toss-up.
Okay.
But the one I finally bought, the reason I bought it, motivation of the guy, remember that? We were talking about motivation? He was an elderly man. He had bought it new. He was like 1 year old. And he had a major heart problem. And the doctors told him, you're not going to live, but maybe another 6 to 12 months with this situation you've got. It's pretty much unfixable. I suggest you get your financial affairs and your business affairs in order to pass from this life. And he felt his wife couldn't cope, so he was selling this and some other items and getting his life ready to go on to the next phase.
Like we did with what I do with real estate. I pre-qualify them before did you find this information out prior?
No, I found it out when I went to look at the property, the motor.
Okay.
The first time. I went a couple of times. I don't always normally buy the first time I look at one. I often go back. And because I went back and looked at the other one that I liked. And then I went back and looked at this one. And by this time I had figured out this was the most motivated purchase.
And that's what you were looking for?
Yes.
Okay. Give me a perspective of the cost. How much was this thing?
Well, it sold new for $86,000. I bought it a year old for $37,000.
Yeah.
That's what he owed on it. And I went to the bank and I paid it off. I paid $7,000 down and I got a bank loan for $30,000.
So the guy basically just handed you the keys.
He just handed me the keys.
And it was just, and his motivation was just one less headache.
He just wanted it gone so his wife didn't have to deal with it when he got sick.
All right. So let's just we're dealing with an 86 asset that you're amazingly acquired for $36,000.
37, yeah.
So, and the gist was that you found out he was a stronger motivated seller. Now, were you more leaning to that one, or was it more of the aesthetics, or was it more because he was motivated?
Because he was motivated. Actually, to be honest with you, I liked the way the other one drove better. This one had less miles on it. It was a year or two newer, but the other one was a more expensive one to begin with. They were about the same price in the used, but that guy was not going to come off of his price anymore. I had already done all he was going to do.
And did you negotiate it when you were driving? So you went and drove it.
Both of them, yeah.
Okay, so let's just go back to the other alternative, number B.
Yeah.
So you got number A, you got him down to 36. That's the one you purchased. On number B, you went and looked at it, touched it, kicked it, felt it, drove it.
Yeah.
Did you negotiate a price there?
Yeah, I did, and I don't remember what it was now. Somewhere around 42. Or so was all he
and
was
same
coming
thing,
down
another $80,000, $90,000 $90,000 RV.
Yeah, well, it was probably about $100,000 RV originally.
Okay.
But it was a couple of years older, and it probably had 30,000 miles on it, where this one had 15.
Okay. And that guy wasn't, and so did you ever do any kind of tricks in negotiating, like the walk away close? Did you, I mean, I try, in my world, when I'm negotiating, I try to get them to give it to me.
Well,
like, don't leave, Mr. VanCauwenbergh. No.
Well, that sometimes would work. In this case, with the guy, the one I did not buy, it would not work. He was a auctioneer and a trader and a dealer, and his negotiating skills were about as good as mine.
Okay.
And so I realized we were just down to about all we were going to win. And the other guy was going to basically let me have it for what he had in it. And I thought it was newer and with less miles, and I liked it pretty much equally well.
So that's obviously the ideal situation, ideal sale by. Well, how long was this process when you got the approval from the wife? You already been working on it mentally.
Probably 60 days.
So you were just being patient.
Oh, yeah. You can't find deals this weekend or next weekend or whatever. You've got to look all the time. And this was not the only thing I was doing. This was just something I wanted on the back burner.
Well,
so.
I think it's important that we give people a perspective to be successful in whatever you want to do. It takes time.
You look a lot.
If you really want a deal, you have to grind it out.
Yeah, first thing you have to do is look a lot and make a lot of offers. Most people are not going to do it. I figure if I make 10 offers, 8 of them are not going to do it.
And the reasoning is, I think, when I teach someone, is because they know what when they see a deal, they'll know that there's a deal.
Absolutely.
Like right now, I have no concept of what an RV costs. Like $90,000 seems like a lot of money, but I know there's $200,000, $400,000 RVs.
That's right.
Now, from an $80,000 or $90,000 RV down to 36, it's a no-brainer. I'd probably buy it myself.
Right.
Because
but see, these things because you looked at 30 or 35 like I did. Now you get to be. In the size you're looking at, you get to be fairly knowledgeable on what one's worth.
Now, we talked about this on a podcast before. Someone was looking at a property last night. I was trying to help somebody, and it was a expensive thing. And I always try to compare. I was like, if you took this, and it was a $500,000 house.
Oh, okay.
In a really nice neighborhood, and this is their own owner-occupied home, and they're calling me. They know that I'm in real estate. I'm trying to help them, and I was like, well, what's the square footage? And it was $156 a square foot. So these people really wanted to live in this specific neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay. And you get emotionally involved, you're not going to make a good deal.
Exactly. And so when I was trying to educate them, I'm like, with $156 a square foot, I'm like, you realize you can build anywhere for that.
Yes. And
you can create the equity that because you're buying it I think the market is going to go down. I can see a lot of, I did some research for this person, and I was like, dude, the high-end market is not doing well right now. It is going down, and you are buying above high market. And I'm reading a new Rich Dad Poor Dad book. I mean, you're going to be upside down on the property, probably.
Well, if you're not, you're going to be fully invested in the property for what it's worth
for the next 10 years.
At the very least.
So if it was me, this was I guess advice I gave them. I said, if you're willing to pay $156 a square, you can probably build a mansion, aka McMansion, for $125 to $130 a square foot, completely custom, and create equity in the property. You can buy the lot for, this is an Edmond, really nice area, for $75,000 or $100,000, which is still double lot, over an acre. Build the thing for $400,000. So you got $500,000 in this asset. Knowing this area, I know that you would be worth $800,000 in probably 5 to 10 years. Well, and you created $300,000 worth of equity.
What you're doing is what businessmen do versus people who get emotionally involved in looking at a house. Somebody in that group got emotionally invested in this property, in this neighborhood, whatever. That's not the way you make money. Anytime you get emotionally invested in anything, car, house, whatever,
lady,
you're not going to make money.
Female, no.
Yeah, whatever. You lose your perspective. You need to be able to walk away from the deal, and if you can't walk away from the deal, you're going to pay too much. I don't care what we're buying.
Okay, I'm setting you up on that one. So you really want an RV. You're an outdoorsman. You love to fish. Okay, You got the approval from your wife for this RV.
Yeah.
You were emotional. How do you control?
I wasn't emotional. I bought the. I
know
carefully went through it.
You did, but the question is, see, I didn't set the question up. So the question is, how do you control your emotions, Pat, in your negotiating?
First thing, I force myself to look at a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
And
That's
don't
awesome.
forget, I was down to 2, not 1.
Okay.
So the worst that would have happened if I couldn't have won the one that I bought, I would probably have just gone back and bought the other one.
Right. And probably a little different, more amenities for a couple more $1,000.
Yeah. I wasn't going to walk away empty-handed.
No, just a side note. What's it like negotiating with someone that has it's a luxury item, a very expensive luxury item? You know, are these people well off? Or, I mean, are they have to sell? Because, like, you know, if they're not upside, I mean, are they upside?
Now, he had to sell because of a medical issue that was pressing down on him.
Well, that's his motive. But like the other guy, he wasn't.
I think he just was tired of owning it. Wasn't terribly motivated.
Right. I bet you if he still has it today, he'd be motivated.
He probably would be, yeah.
Is there any tricks or techniques that you can increase someone's motivation?
Sometimes you can point out what are potential problems, maybe a repair that they don't want to take on.
Maintenance.
Deferred maintenance, things like
holding
that.
costs.
You know, what they could do with the money besides that. And, you know, sometimes you say, you know, if I bought this and I gave you $40,000, what would you do with the $40,000? Oh, well, I'm going to buy this condo in Vail. Well, what is it? What's my down payment? Now we start talking about how great it'd be to ski in Vail and how only a few years, like in my case, I'm getting old. If I were going to do that, I better be doing it. You know, and whatever. And so I'd build up a reason why, justifications why they should move on. Okay. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
And so let's apply some negotiating techniques to real estate. Me personally, before I purchase a property, like I have my address, I have it like I'm going to look at a property today, I try to size up my opponent.
Sure.
I look at every detail, how many houses they own, where they own them, how long they've owned them, what they bought them for. Are they quick on paying their taxes? I mean, that's a trick that I use too. I look up their taxes. I'm so crazy about it. I look up all 10 years if they own the property. Are they paying it through a loan? Are they escrowed? And if they're not escrowed, when did that drop off? Then I can kind of calculate, and I look up their mortgage if possible. I mean, I try to do as extensive research and as much as I can about. That's just how I operate. When you get your house in your sights, what's the first thing that goes through your mind?
Well, generally speaking, let's take a house. Maybe I've looked at it on the MLS.
Okay.
I kind of thought it was a house I wanted, so I made arrangements to go look at it.
Right.
By the time I go look at it, I've got the tax records on it. I've looked at the courthouse records if there's any kind of les pendens filings or anything on it as well. Generally, my wife will do that while I'm in transit.
That's a great tip right there.
And then I walk around the house, and the way I start in the yard. I look at the yard, and I try to make a pencil note to myself that the yard's going to take $500, $2,000, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I go around the outside of the house, and I say, it's going to need eaves painted. It's going to need a siding piece replaced here. It's got a crack in the brick there. And I do that. Then I go inside, and I walk through room by room by room, and I say, southwest bedroom is going to need paint, $100. It's going to need a crack patch, $50, a lot, all the way through the whole house. And then I come back and I add all that up. Mm-hmm. Now, by then, I've gotten an idea what the recent sales in the neighborhood are, because that's one of the things that we did our research on before we left home. And so I've seen some recent comps, and I say, okay, it'll sell for $60, and I'm looking at, they're asking $40, and I'm thinking that it's going to take $5,000 worth of work. So I want to make the $20, so I take the $5 off the $40, and I'm hoping I can buy it for $35.
And this is all predetermined.
I do that while I'm walking around and looking at it and thinking about it.
And before we even start negotiating.
Yes. Now, I know where I'm at. And so if they say we'll take $35 cash, I know we're there right now. If they say we wouldn't take a dime under $40, then I know I've either got to justify a lower price to them in some manner or other and change their opinion, or I got to walk away.
Mm-hmm. All right. What other techniques do you like to use? So that to answer that technique is that you do as much research, much data, and so you can fire at them like repairs,
right?
And then you can do the whole. I love the concept. Hey, what are you going to do with the money?
Right.
What, would this make your life easier?
Well, now that leads to something else. What are you going to do with the money? May lead to a seller carry.
Right.
Depending on what they're going to do with the money.
And that's your favorite thing?
Oh, you bet.
Creative financing.
Yeah.
With no bank funding.
Well, absolutely.
And usually very low interest or none.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. What other techniques? How about negotiating? Have you ever negotiated with a bank on terms?
I find banks to be difficult to negotiate with. Again, they're professionals, and again, the person that you're dealing with usually doesn't have authority to do very heavy negotiations without a group of other people, and then you lose all kinds of control. They go back to talk to the IE loan committee or whoever, and you're not going to be present, and those people are going to, you don't know what's taking place. And I find it to be somewhat difficult. Now, if it's an REO department, that's a different matter. I'm talking about the local bank that you do business with. You go in there and try to negotiate on something with them, you're going to find that fairly hard to do.
And also, I think it changes the dynamic of that relationship that you've been working so long, of maybe even building a relationship to get that REO. And then when you're like hammering them and you know that their hands are tied, it changes.
Well, on an REO, the way I would approach negotiating an REO would normally not be. First thing, depend on the days they've held it. Now, if it's something they've held a long time, I'd say, look, why don't you clean up your books? This is the best I can do. It's an opportunity. Let's both just bend a little here. I'll come up $500. You come down $5,000, and I kind of make a joke with them like that. And and remember, this is my $500, but it's not your $5,000.
Right.
But it does clean up your books. Is kind of how I would talk to them. Now, if that doesn't work, then I say, well, I know you've got these other two properties in this town. How would you feel about a package deal?
Yeah.
And even if they won't do it, it's not the same as standing in their face saying this or
dude, that's another
the
great
hell
nugget.
with you,
Pat, that's another great nugget, because when you say package deal, it creates a dynamic where, wow, this guy's got potential. Even if you don't even have the ability, but it's just like when I talk to bankers and I know their language, they just their body language changes. They're more attuned to listening to what I'm saying. They have a greater belief in who I am as a real estate investor, which builds on character. When you say the word package deal or other inventory or other assets that are not performing,
that's right.
You use these proper terms.
Maybe I can help you with a number of these problems all at one time.
Right.
A package.
We can solve it and do it in one transaction. A lot of people don't realize that the same amount of effort dealing with a $30,000 loan or a $300,000 loan is the same process.
Or a $3 million one.
Yes.
And maybe the $3 million one takes care of all their problems with the bank examiners, and all they got to do is get somebody to take it off their hands. And they've never looked at trying to do that. But if you did the $3 million one and you got $4 million worth of equity, maybe that was the deal of a lifetime.
Right.
Now, maybe it isn't. Maybe just walk away. But it's another way to find out where they're at.
And another nugget, man. We're just throwing nuggets out today. But listen, the best thing you can do on an REO, on a bank problem, is they're able to write the loan for that bad asset.
Sure.
And I've seen bankers in my own transactions will jump over hula hoops if they can still get rid of that bad asset, but create a new loan, another.
What I've often done with them is said, look, I know you got these 9 houses here. Why don't you sell all 9 of them to me for instead of $60,000 for that one and $30 for this one and $90 for that one? Why don't you sell them all to me for $40 a piece, and you make me a new loan for $400,000?
It's awesome.
And if they don't, they don't. But if they like it, it doesn't hurt their feelings.
Okay, let's sum this up. Let's end this podcast. It's 30 minutes here, but I think. What a great negotiating technique that you're saying, we're not articulating it, is creating other opportunities. Like this is a package and deflect what we're trying to do. We're not just trying to go head to head on this one property. We're trying to solve problems that we can do multiple transactions at this one time.
Sometimes you'll be amazed at how flexible they become.
And even with the RV, I mean, maybe the guy had a trailer on the side or a boat. And you don't even want that boat, but believe me, if you got that boat, if you look at the percentage that you got off a 1-year-old RV from 86,000 down to 30. It's $50,000 worth of equity minus the depreciation. Let's just say that thing's probably worth 70. You got that RV 50 cents on the dollar. I mean, just mathematically.
I wouldn't have bought one if I couldn't.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
I mean, just think about it logically. Okay, let's just think about this. You got a $86,000. Let's take off the quick depreciation, $16,000 off the top for the 1 year depreciation. You got $70,000 of the book value of this asset. You lock this deal up at $35,000. That's 50 cents on the dollar. This guy has a boat next to the thing, and I'm not interested in a boat, right? But as a real estate investor, as a negotiator, what if you acquired that boat at 50 cents on the dollar? Don't you think you could sell that for 60 cents on the dollar?
Oh, absolutely.
65. Yeah. People pay for boats. Or you buy that boat for 50, use private money. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
And then you owner finance that boat to that person.
Yeah,
and you're creating an income stream even off of non-real estate.
And as far as owner financing that boat, you'll have people lined up to buy it. There's no such thing in the world except for you. I mean, if we advertised a boat today with owner financing, we'd be the only guy on the Craigslist offering owner financing.
Well, I'm cleaning up my house, and I have a elliptical machine that that's extremely expensive. It's $6,000. I'm trying to sell it. I bought it for like 14 something. I'm selling it for what I have right now on Amazon at 17. But I'll take payments on it. I'll take $100 a month for 2 years, or 18 months or something. Get rid of it. It's a headache. I don't want it in my way. Anyway, well, this is the savvy.
I'll give you $400 for it cash today.
I thought about it, but I actually put it down at the old office, and they're actually using. If I could get my staff healthy, we're all good to go.
Well, in 2 weeks from now, when your staff is no longer using it on a regular basis, call me.
They won't. Anyway, Pat, it's always a pleasure. Negotiations. We got more podcasts coming together. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Savvy Radio Show. Go back to thesavvyradioshow.com. Type in the word Pat Pointon or Pointon,
N-T-O-N.
Yeah, Pointon, and you will find all valuable nuggets. I'm telling you, we dropped about 13, 15 nuggets today. We got many more to come.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.